Alison, you have just completed something called the Rose Review. So you know when someone's really good at their job is they actually get a whole review called after them. And not only did Alison complete the Rose Review, she did it in record time. So that mandate of if you want a job done, give it to a busy woman. This is a busy woman and a busy working mother as well. And obviously you've had a fantastic career as well. So we think all the audience is delighted you can join us today to hear a bit more about your career, but also what the Rose Review is and what's the next step for it. Because obviously reviews are great. When they get into action, even better.
Absolutely.
So can you maybe just talk a little bit about that, the history to it, and then what's come out of that as your messaging?
So the Rose Review was a study into what are the barriers facing female entrepreneurs, and it really came out of the back of a program that we'd set up at NatWest to help entrepreneurs. So we have accelerator hubs around the UK supporting entrepreneurs completely free. And what we found through that was that we were getting, in those entrepreneur hubs, 47% of the entrants were women, which was great. So we were getting without targets or anything. But what I was finding consistently was that women were saying how difficult it was to be an entrepreneur, how hard it was to get support. And there's been a lot of research on this and a lot of campaigns. The Telegraph obviously did a big initiative. I know you've been banging the drum on this as well. So on the back of, I guess, agitating around this subject, Robert Jenrick, the Exchequer Secretary, asked me to do the review. And what we wanted to do was find out whether there was a real problem, what the barriers were, and most importantly, come up with what some of the practical solutions were. So we did a very fact-based review. We looked at all of the research that's already been done. We conducted interviews and roundtables with female and male entrepreneurs so we could get to the bottom of the problem. And we looked at the best practice that was happening around the world. And I think what the report showed us was it was a very staggering and quite shocking set of statistics. For the UK, we have only 1 in 3 entrepreneurs is female, compared to best-in-class countries where you're getting close to 40 to 45%. But what the really shocking element of the report showed was that only 1% of venture capital funding is going to female-led businesses. Male-led businesses have 4 times as much equity funding at scale up. And only, at startup, there are less women starting up, and women are less represented in the high growth segments. Now, if you look at that, that's a pretty bleak picture. If you look at it from an optimistic perspective and looking at the best-in-class actions that have been taken around the world, Canada is very strong on this, Netherlands, Australia. If you can get women to the same level as men in terms of startups and scale-ups, you're talking about a 250 billion contribution to the UK economy. And right at the point where we're talking about productivity and growth, I think that is a staggering amount of opportunity that we can unlock and potential we can unlock. So those were the findings. And really what we found, the barriers, we tried to distill it down to practical things. Why are we in that position? Well, the barriers that came up through our research were low access to financing and funding, greater risk awareness by female entrepreneurs. They're not risk averse, that's often misinterpreted, greater risk awareness. Primary care responsibilities is definitely a barrier. A perception from female entrepreneurs that they have less skills or less experience, and we found that really wasn't the case when we were doing the comparison, and lack of relatable role models and support. So those were the key barriers. So what we tried to do is then say, what practically can we do about it, and come up with interventions, and there's no silver bullet here, but interventions where public and private sector can work together to try and intervene to really start unlocking some of that potential. So that, in a nutshell, was the report.
Great, thank you. And one of your recommendations was for banks and investment funds to set up a new investing in women code. Yep. I think latest statistics I had was 48% of VCs don't have any women on their investment teams. Yep. So is that also contributing to the issue? I think all the women in this room would not want tokenism, but I don't think it's about that. Obviously, it's about how do we sit there and really move this forward, and not just shine a spotlight on it, but just change attitudes.
Yes.
We've got similar reporting mechanisms, obviously tracking gender pay, females at executive and board level. Will that data tracking deliver the desired results, do you think?
I think so. I mean, I think it's about shining the spotlight and creating transparency, because if you don't know what the problem is or what the opportunity is, then it's really hard to see. So I think for us, it's about transparency. So we've asked for a voluntary code that banks sign up to, and ourselves, we're signing up to that. Lloyds, Santander, Angel Association, they're all signed up to that, and we're talking to Barclays and HSBC about doing the same. And I think that's about being transparent, so then you can track progress. We've also launched a task force for VCs as well to show that. And I think there are two aspects there. One of it is access, and one of it is awareness. So actually, if you shine the light, although we shouldn't be frightened of the statistics, if you know what the problem is, then you can actually start doing something about it. So we've got codes running on both of those.
Yeah. I think most people agree that targets are good.
Yes.
I don't like quotas, but targets are good, because otherwise we're just not going to change it. And even in fintech, 17% of fintech founders are female.
Yeah.
Slightly better statistics than the 1% or 3%. But that's not great.
I agree with you. I think targets are really important. I mean, I'm a banker, so I'm into numbers, but I've put targets in my own team around diversity measures, and they're not quotas, they're targets. But I think that view of, if you don't know what the problem is, and if you don't measure it, and you're not going to track progress. So I think that's a helpful start.
And that comes to sort of the wider business. Obviously, you're a senior woman in banking. Do you think the UK's business leaders are equipped with the right skills to deliver all the change? And how can we promote more diversity in financial services and fintech and make that change happen?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it comes back to there's no silver bullet to fix anything, and I think lots of people talk about what they're doing to do it. I think shining the spotlight, being transparent, putting interventions in place. I think making fintech and finance and different careers interesting and exciting, and being very visible about the opportunities in creating the right culture is really important. I think increasingly with technology and new innovation, having an agile mindset and a constantly learning mindset is really important, because I think that's how you're going to develop and keep up with the pace of change. But I think the industries like the finance sector have to do a better job of explaining what the opportunity is, making it clear the culture is open and one where you can be your whole self and thrive, and create those interventions to make sure you are creating a diverse workforce. And I think that's what we will need to do. Otherwise, we will lag. Fundamentally, what we're talking about when we talk about diverse and inclusive workforces is we're talking about getting the best talent into an organization. If you're running a competitive organization competing, you need the best talent. And I think that's something everybody needs to wake up to. Everybody has a choice. Everyone individual has a choice in terms of how they work, what sort of culture they want to work in, and what they want to achieve. So if you're sitting in an organization that doesn't reflect either your customers or the talent, they'll choose someone else. So for me, it's a basic business requirement.
Yeah. So obviously, I think you would agree, and everyone would agree how successful you've been in banking, and what's more been a period of maybe a little bit more challenging on gender diversity.
Yeah.
And as I said, and we've talked in the past. Alison has two what I call young children, same as me, and the challenges of that. And I think when we talk to millennials, they're looking at that now. It doesn't matter, male, female, sitting there saying, well, how am I going to tackle that in the future? What's your advice to young people starting out in their career today? And also, just touch on the education system. Have we got the right skills in the education system to inspire children to sit there and continue with digital and tech skills, which are going to be so much needed, but they may not know it now?
Yeah, I mean, the advice I would always give to any person in their career is find something you really enjoy doing. I mean, if you don't have a passion or a buzz for what you're going to do, and that doesn't mean every day is perfect and there are really boring bits of everybody's job, but find something you really love doing. And then I think really importantly, invest in yourself. It is a contract that you have to make with who your employer or employers are going to be, or your team. You've got to invest in yourself, and you've got to constantly learn. And so constantly investing in yourself, finding something you enjoy, taking risks, trying new things, making mistakes, that's how we all develop. Those are all the things I would advise someone to do when they're starting out. And then all the, my HR team always tell me off because they always say, you must have a 3, 5, 10-year career plan. I've never had that. Find something you enjoy doing, work with a good team, invest in yourself. That's probably the best advice I would give. I think the point around does the education system do enough? I think no, we're coming into an age where change is happening so fast. Digital and tech skills are really important, but empathy and EQ is massively important as well, and finding that wonderful balance and alchemy of technology and human interaction coming together. I think if you're running a customer-facing business like I am, that is critical. Having an entrepreneurial mindset, learning to fail, learning new skills is critical, and I don't think a lot of that is happening on the curriculum. We know we have a real problem in this country and globally around financial education and financial awareness. People's level of financial acumen is very low. We're not doing enough to teach people the basics of how they run their lives and financial skills. So there are a lot of programs that other partners I'm sure you've spoken to, I know you do a lot, we try and do a lot to get into schools to teach children about money and financial awareness. So we have a Money Sense program that's, over the last 20 years has taught 6.5 million kids about money. Great, basic awareness. But I think that entrepreneurial mindset is really important. So we're trying to take our entrepreneur development program that we have put our entrepreneurs through our accelerator hubs, and we've packaged it with a program around mindset, around positive body image for girls, around creative thinking, called a program called Dream Bigger, which we're now piloting in schools for girls to try and get that extra element of running a business. Because I think, the choice of careers now for people is hugely variable. And actually not everyone wants to get on a corporate ladder. They might want to do that for a little while. They might want to go and run their own business. They might want to do something else. Increasingly, big organizations have to partner and be entrepreneurial. So I think we've got to really help do that. I don't think we can rely just on the financial education system. I think private sector has to intervene and help as well where they can.
I think you're right, because I think as quickly as we'd get that into Department for Education and into curriculum, it's changed and probably out of date. So that that is the issue. And you talked about the disruption and innovation and that speed. So the UK banking sector has gone under so much change over the last 2 to 3 years, post-financial crisis, and that pace of change seems to be accelerating all the time. I remember being at the end of the 90s and in the tech boom, and saying to someone, I cannot imagine a decade where we're going to see so much change. My first mobile phone, I had email, I had internet, and you look back and go, we're not at that decade yet. Yeah. So how are you helping your organisation deal with this disruption? I know you have a fabulous team who we work with, but how do you keep that pace of change through all of the bank, not just the innovation team, not just the labs, and deal with that disruption? So
we do a number of things. I mean, one of the things we do for all of our colleagues is so they all go through the Entrepreneur Development Academy, so we teach them that. We're teaching them coding. We have a data academy. I have an academy. So trying to train people and bring insight into the new skills and the new development, I think that's an important aspect. We have scouting teams that sit in San Francisco and Israel who bring us, the new innovations, the new fintechs, and the same here in London. And what we increasingly do is try and learn from fintechs and partner. Because I think the days of thinking, you know the answer to everything is long gone. The pace of change is exponential now. So we try and partner increasingly with fintechs and learn from them. And partner with them together. We have huge amounts of customers, huge amounts of data. They have great tech, great insights. So not always thinking we know best. So we sort of train our people, we partner as a business, and importantly, we try and put deeper understanding of what our customer needs are so that we can innovate. And then, of course, we're a huge bank, so we're trying to innovate our core as well. We spend £1 billion a year on investment in our business and our technology, and we're seeing the pace of change, is so much faster than even we imagined it. So we're trying new things in the bank as well. So our AI chatbot called Cora now does 83,000 interactions a week. That didn't exist a year ago. The amount of payments that are going through our mobile app has gone up 50% just in 1 year. So the change that's going through is incredible. So we try and make sure we keep the core safe, stable for our customers, partner with innovators, and educate our own staff and support our customers. But I think the really important aspect of all of this change is not everybody changes at the same rate. So one of the things I'm very focused on, as I know you are, is thinking about, not everybody wants to be digital. It's not intuitive to everyone. We need to make sure we educate and support and transition and not get so far ahead of our customers and also not leave anyone behind. And I think for me as a big organization and a big bank, trying to balance that is really key to all the things we're trying to do.
And do you think the customers get it? I mean, I think we have a fairly informed audience here. You don't have to go too far outside the M25 before information flow isn't as savvy maybe as round in Guildhall today. Yep. How do we get those customers to understand it? How do we reach into societies who are? I mean, I know you have some amazing, depressing stats on the unbanked. How can we help that, and how can a bank like RBS and that rest of the brands you have there help to deliver that?
Yeah, look, I think it's very easy when you're in the bubble to think everybody gets, blockchain and digital and distributed ledger and AI, and of course, why wouldn't you do it? And the reality is, all of those things sound terribly alien and terribly scary, also at a time when fraud and scams and disruption is happening. So I think there's a huge part of education and support. So with our branch network, we have tech experts, and a lot of what they do is work with our customers to explain why biometric ID is actually safer rather than worse. We do a huge amount around scam education to really help our customers. What we find is, whilst the bank might get attacked by DDoS attacks, and we have huge amounts of security, it is the attacks on the individual consumer, the confidence frauds, the scams that really happen. So we do a huge amount in education, support. We have our Money Sense program. We have our training programs. We partner with people like the Citizens Advice Bureau to help educate people and try and provide that insight and knowledge so that we don't leave anyone behind, and we try and bring them along, and also make sure they have all the choices. So if you want to bank digitally, you can, but if you want to call a call centre, you can. And it's trying to balance that in the right way. I think on the financial exclusion point, the statistics vary between, there's 1.5 to 1.7 million people in this country who are unbanked, who don't have a bank account. And that has massive implications for their access to finance, but how much they have to pay for their gas, their electricity, for getting on their, paying rent, getting into accommodation. And so we're trying to think of how we help. Now, we have something like 450,000 accounts that are opened, which are basic accounts. And we have, over 1 million of those in, banked with us. But this 1.7 million unbanked, that can't be right in a developed society that we have that. So one of the things we're doing is, let's try and bring that partnership together, work with fintechs, work with you, and we're running a hackathon in June to look at this financial exclusion and say, how can we solve that problem in a way that's practical and helpful? Because I think we have to make sure nobody's left behind. And we do a lot with vulnerable customers and try and help that as well. But I think that's something we as a bank have to do, but I think it's public and private sector working together to really try and get under all of this.
No, and I'm really excited about the hackathon. So it's going to be 22nd, 23rd of June, I think. We're going to be, it's not in London, it's in Scotland.
Yep.
So good to get out of London on that one. Affordable credit, banking the unbanked. And what I've been saying, as you say, public-private, with Alison and also with our friends over at Treasury, is saying, how can we ensure that fintech doesn't digitally exclude more people?
Yes.
Because that is the risk. For any fintech in the room, I think we're very excited to have anyone coming into that saying,
Definitely.
if you're fintech, how do you solve that problem? How do we bank the unbanked? And how do we get people affordable credit, which is the major piece as well. Now I know I'm conscious of my time, and I probably have eyes bearing in the back of my head here. So I'll take this opportunity to close. Alison, 3, 5, 10-year career plan. I'm quite interested how HR is telling you on that one. I'm not going to put you on the spot on that one, but wish you all the best of luck in your career. Thank you so much today.
Pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.